And welcome everybody to the Enlightened Men's Movement Summit. I am so honored and grateful to have John Burgos with us here today. And he's going to be talking about owning your truth, navigating spiritual relationships. I want to tell you a little bit about him before we get started. Most popularly known as the producer and host of Beyond the Ordinary Show, an amazing show. Best-selling author and international motivational speaker, John Burgos has committed his life to improving and enriching the lives of others. Moved by profound shamanic experiences that ignited his trust in his innate intuitive abilities, yes, John has dedicated his passions to awakening of spiritual consciousness to the masses. Hallelujah. John is a talented and adept psychic and teacher for the new generation whose distinct style blends wit, wisdom, compassion, love, common sense, and profound esoteric knowledge that activates soul consciousness and encourages the embodiment of an individual's sovereign empowerment. So I'm so grateful to have you here today, John.
Thank you. Yeah, it's fantastic to be here.
So one of the first things I'm asking everybody to kick the party off is just to get your own perspective, not that there's an absolute answer, but just your own musings, perspectives on what does it mean to you to be an enlightened man?
Well, I don't want to be contradictory. And the enlightenment part, it always seems like it's something that it's proposed, that it's something that we're supposed to attain and strive forward. And the truth is, we come in enlightened. We're always enlightened, except we put on these layers of things that dims it and that helps us to forget that which we already are. And so this enlightenment, it's really a recognition, it's a remembering, it's a reactivation of something that's innate within us. Naturally, it's organic. And so it's time to take the filters off and the layers off so that we can really embody that which we came in as and remember. And it's so much easier to remember than it is to try to attain something that we're not.
Mm-hmm. Oh, thank you so much. I mean, just, like that is like so, like even for me today, I've heard that, millions of times that this truth, is there. And even for me right in this moment, it's like, oh, what a perfect reminder. Just the constant reminder of like, we're already enlightened. It's just, we put on the masks and the masquerade party and got lost in it. Believing maybe we are the masks or whatever, all the different stuff. So it's like, it's just so like, right.
And it's really that energy, Dan. It's you want to see someone that's enlightened, witness someone laughing and having a good time and being in joy. Watch a kid playing and in wonder and in awe of the surroundings. Watch an elderly person just relieved of duties and responsibility, just being in their space through that wisdom of age, and they just can relax into their being instead of attaining something outside of them. And that's enlightenment. We strive for all these outside accomplishments. Let's build the business. Let's have this great relationship, this powerful soul purposed relationship with other people. Let's accomplish this and that. And it's when we come back into who we really are and what we came in as, it's the expression of joy, the expression of awe, the adventure inside of us that wants to keep discovering new things just because we get to. In human experience, for nothing else other than we get to adventure into that. And that for me is true enlightenment.
Oh, wow. Wow. Yeah. And, my interaction with you is one of the things I have noticed is you have that spontaneous joy and love. And, I really appreciate about you. And just really, really cool. So I really appreciate that. So today we're talking about spiritual relationships and as it pertains to men especially. Wonder what you would like to share around, men and even what is a spiritual relationship? I was wondering about that. I'm thinking like, well, isn't every relationship a spiritual relationship? So
right.
I was kind of wondering about that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's absolutely, everything is a spiritual relationship, and every interaction we have with whomever, it's all part of our our cycle as, again, being here incarnate. So spiritual relationship is really, again, it's that adventure into discovering different aspects of ourselves as it relates to having interaction with someone else. And in this case, when we talk about spiritual relationships, if you want to talk about a significant other, a divine love connection, if you will, which a lot of people tend to define it that way, then it's really looking at that person as a reflection of us, but also opening up to accepting the other person because we're also a reflection of them. So we get to discover something within each other through that connection. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Everything is a spiritual relationship. And even those things that seem like they're the hardest relationships to go through, and the really karmic ones, whether they're filled with strife or abuse or incongruency of some sort, it's not really incongruent. It's matched for a reason, and we're there to show each other something as souls. I truly believe we have these not contracts, but these agreements that we come in with one another. You and I have this to do this call together, and who knows what else, right?
Right.
And we, had you asked me 5 years ago that I was going to be sitting here on this particular week in October with Dan having a conversation about soul relationships, I couldn't have planned that out. But it's the serendipity that shows up, and it's our willingness to go into the guidance and say yes to different opportunities that creates the spiritual relationships. That's us saying through our hearts, yes, I'm showing up. And in that showing up, your presence, it's a gift to the other person. And remember that that person sitting across from you is also a divine gift for you.
Yes, yes. Well, one of the things that really captured me that you said that has really been up for me in my life overall is this, the sense of the unknown, like we get so fixed in our ideas. Well, it seems like this will happen next in our life, or, we got our plans, and, certainly a lot of those things will come together and some won't, but they're, increasingly I find, as we keep expanding, it's like there's more and more. We don't know what's happening. We have a sense of it, but like also it's like, whoa, really? This is what I'm called to do or to be, or this is presenting itself in this relationship. Really? I would have never imagined this, And like people like me and you that are intuitive, like, wait a minute, I'm intuitive. I didn't see this coming. So it's really interesting. Yeah, it's a really interesting dance.
Yeah, and I actually love this dance because a few years ago, I can actually see where things were heading for myself and for others. And now it tends to be really vague. The information that comes in, I get the feeling sense of it. And I can feel the expansion. I can feel some of the struggles that are leading me to something else. Also, it's like, oh, I'm going to have to grow through this to get to there. And I can feel that. But the pictures, how the scene's going to play out, where it's going to play out, it's so vague. It's beautifully vague. And I truly believe is that we're being called in to collaborate with Source in a way that we haven't before. We've vibrationally gotten to a certain point where, again, we talked about sovereignty in my bio. It mentions it. And we're attaining this level of sovereignty of getting to know ourselves at such a deep and intimate way like we haven't before in generations. So I'm talking humanity in generations, individuals in humanity through generations. And from that, it's like we've graduated to a different grade, to a different vibratory level where we are now in co-creation and collaboration with Source, as opposed to, not that we weren't before, but there's a different perspective on it. It's like we're more in the driver's seat and we're not being as affected by it, and more I'll put it this way. I grew up very Catholic. And so we were taught to pray to God, and you pray for things. And so when we got taught to pray, it's like you ask God to meet you where you are. Please help me here. Please help me there. Come down to my level so that you can understand my struggle, and please help me from here. And it seems to have flipped the energy and where we're coming from because of all the transformational work that we're doing, all the self-improvement that we're aware of within ourselves. Now, when we ask for something, when we pray, when we long for something in our hearts, that's prayer for me authentically. Mm-hmm. That's a co-creation with Source. And so now when we pray, we're actually vibrating up and meeting God at a different level. And so we're not asking God to meet us in suffering. We're not asking God to meet us in this place that seems like we're stuck. We're actually resonating up and we're saying, God, what's possible? Please help me bring this in. But now we're asking for the emotional tone, not a specific circumstance. Now we're asking for possibilities that are aligned with our potential, as opposed to aligned with an environment of scarcity or struggle that we were raised with. That was never true, but it's just part of what we had to go through the generational gap as we ascended into this vibrational state of awareness. And through this consciousness, we're able to create differently. We're matching a creator source energy that is actually what the law of attraction was teaching a while back. But it's beyond attraction, because you can try to attract something, but if you can't hold the vibration of it, it's not going to stay. It's the law of creation. It's the law beyond the manifestation, where we're co-creating based again on that emotional tone. And because we can hold that emotional tone, what actually comes in, we can not only sustain, but we can grow from it. And because we can grow from it and sustain it, that means it creates ripple effects for others to benefit from it also. So it creates a collaborative community. So everything that you do for yourself is actually also done for the collective. And then that it's beautiful, because when you have that platform, that foundation where it's good for you, it's good for the people that are around you, and it's good for the collective, then you know you're onto something that's really meaningful and purposeful, and it's going to create joy and passion, and you're going to feel that sense of purpose that perhaps you didn't when you're trying to function from a different perspective.
Right. Absolutely. Absolutely. And so many times, like in business, it shows up, and in personal relationships with people. Again, we get in our boxes. I think we get a tunnel vision of, even intuitively, sometimes we think it's going a certain way in a relationship. Like, oh, well, I felt like, it's going in this direction, this relationship. And I expected, you would show up in this certain way and you'd be like this and you wouldn't change. And like, you're changing on me in your life. And like, what's going on? And it's I don't like it. And, it's pushing my buttons. And what am I going to do now? And but when you raise to that energy, the way you're describing, like raising that energy of being at source creation, vibration, energy, raising our energy, we start to deepen into our emotions. We don't get out of our emotions. We deepen into them. We start seeing a real deeper truth in it all. And the truth is always good. It's always like, you know what? This is exactly what was exactly the right thing. And the only thing we ever suffer from is when we aren't seeing that. Is when we don't see that, then that creates all the suffering and all the sense of all kinds of other effects. So I don't know. That's exactly what came up for me as you said we're talking about that. And I'm guessing, this has a lot to do with what you're talking about with really, I'm guessing it has to do with owning this deeper truth, owning your truth, the way, in the title is like owning your truth in relationships and relationship with yourself and with source. And I just, all of these feelings I'm getting about what you're pointing to here.
Yeah. And that's the big word that you said, the E word, the expectations. And the truth is, for me, the only expectation I can have is that everything is going to change, even my truth. And what I consider my truth maybe 10 seconds ago no longer has to be my truth 10 seconds from now. Or it could stay my truth 10 years from now. And it's just where I am, but I can't have the expectation that that's going to be somebody else's truth also. What I can expect, it's because I honor that deeply within me, is that I will find people to have a relationship with who will play with me in whatever truth I'm carrying, and we'll get to play ping pong with one another. And in that, it forms beautiful relationships, because it's an exploration into not only discovering ourselves, but into the beauty of someone else in relationship. And what is more marvelous than that? To fall in love with someone, to get to know them so well, whether it's a love, intimate relationship, or a friend or a child that you're with, and all that. and to witness their growth and their process, and to get to be invited into that. It's a gift that we often don't acknowledge. We forget. We take it for granted a lot of times because we get so busy. But when we get into really acknowledging the God within someone else, again, that blossoming of this beautiful energy that of someone who's sitting across from us, and everybody has that. When we start acknowledging that, it's like all different types of possibilities start showing up. And then synchronicities come in through relationships, through business opportunities, through creative projects, through opportunities to play in ways that you haven't before, or that you had in the past that really filled you up. And then life starts churning at a different speed. And you find that the mundane things that we were doing to try to maintain relationship, to try to persist in something, the times that we felt drained because we weren't in an environment that really was honoring of us, those tends to shift. And we get into like this time bubble where things just, time just doesn't make sense. 2 minutes can seem like 4 hours because you feel like you're in a great space, or 4 hours can seem like 30 seconds. And it's like time collapses, and all that matters is the energy between where your presence is until your presence is called somewhere else. And so it's just a whole different way that we're adjusting to doing relationships as we adjust to these vibratory levels that we are capable of reaching now.
Right. All of us. Right. And I think, uniquely for men, they have, there's so many different types of, it's almost like a label men, but there are more certain characteristics and things that men seem to, deal with versus what women are dealing with in relationship to life and to each other and everything. And so what I'm wondering is a little bit more of your perspective on that, as well as like with this evolution of consciousness that is, ever spiraling upward the way I look at it, overall. And so it's funny, we think about like where we've come from, and I think like at some level we think like some of us might think like, well, haven't we learned a lot already? How much more is there really to learn? It's like being in a classroom and like, man, haven't we learned enough by now? And we realize there's so much more. We're spiraling higher and higher and higher. And the idea of the collapse, the old toxicity in relationships for men, with the boxes that we created for ourselves, which served and yet it don't fit anymore. Yeah. They serve something for a period of time, the way we've been with our families and our work or whatever, everything. And now we're shifting from that into, we really are in a more divine feminine energy coming in, and then it's awakening the enlightened masculine. And so how do we, from your perspective, how do men, navigate that with this, all this beautiful stuff you're sharing about the way I hear is like a spiraling consciousness is just the way it comes to me. And I'd love to hear your perspective.
I love your awareness about the spiraling consciousness, and I agree with you. And first of all, I love what you said about everything that we've learned. And there's so much, and we think we have to, that we think we have it and that there's still more to go. And there's also the invitation to let go of what we learned. Just let it go. Just release it. You don't have to hold it. You have to contain it. What you need in any situation is already part of you. And any part of retaining is holding on to something that's superficial to you. And so we can create space for what's for us to show up and not worry about so much holding these grids and these structures together. It's going to create a lot more flow and grace in our lives. It's going to ease us tremendously. Because as men, yes, we have very particular opportunities that show up for us in caregiving and being a certain way to take care of the people around us and our children and the women in our life. And these roles that we've been taught that we've had to play. And they've served well, and I think they still serve us well. But a lot of the roles in those boxes that we put ourselves in, while they were good generations back, also serve from a spiritual perspective to slow down the soul's progress of what they came here to learn as well. So as we try to hold a container for someone else so that they don't struggle, they don't fall over, they don't suffer, they don't do without, we want to give them everything as men. We're also creating an opportunity that they are so facilitated and their hand is held so much in such a way that they don't get to stumble as they crawl and learn to stand up. They don't get to go through their own lessons. They don't get to have relationships outside of us that perhaps are beautiful karmic lessons for their growth. And so if we can just relax and trust that the universe not only has our back, but the universe has the back of everyone else that we love and want to take care of as well, we don't have to be their source. We don't have to be their supply. We get to play in that as they invite us into it, but we don't have to be everything for a particular person, our children, our wives, our girlfriends, our employees, whatever. We get to show up authentically as us. And by doing that, you give them permission to do the same. And there's this dance that gets created in that, where authenticity is created, where people show up in the way that they really are. Then you really know what type of relationship that you're in. And if someone really wants to be there, if someone's really there because it's out of a need instead of a want. And it never feels good to be in a relationship when someone needs you for the long term. It doesn't feel like really the love that we came here to experience. And while those soul contracts can be great, it's not fulfilling, and we're going to reach for something else. And so we may look for that expression of relationship in other areas of our life to try to fulfill something where at core, it's not meeting us here. But that structure will eventually collapse one way or the other. And so we have to be aware of that. A big problem, I won't say a problem, a big opportunity that's come up, and I've experienced this personally also, is the reawakening of the masculine in a whole new empowered way. And the feminine movement and the divine feminine coming up, definitely rising, has been beautiful. And as that was coming up, I kept seeing energetically, like, people are not talking about the divine masculine. It's like, it's so integral to this. It's one doesn't go without the other. It can't. And I don't even say there's a balance. There's a dance between the two that happens. There's a back and forth. There's no balance in that. It's organisms like that aren't balanced. They're a constant creation and melding. In that dance, there's an opportunity for the masculine, who's been so judged and misinterpreted in this fire energy that we've repressed as men, our passion, our anger, our fire, to make women feel comfortable. And so it's really important that as we continue to move forward and we continue to wake up and become aware of our shadow side, that shadow side is also asking for relationship from us. The fear, the anger, the aggression, the power, that creative energy is all serving us. It's just that we've misinterpreted it. We're afraid that we're going to be our fathers or our grandfathers or our great grandfathers and abuse it and do these other things against women. Or we hear such stories from women that we want to be in a relationship with about men are a certain way. And so we try not to be that for them, that we forget who we are. And so it's an opportunity to awaken that within us and own it and be okay with our anger, be okay with our sexuality, be okay with all that, and allow it to bubble up, but also understand as you do your own inner work, as you become more intimate with yourself and you get to understand where that's emanating from. Once you start getting to the foundation where love is truly your intention. If your intentions are more egoic based and they're based on manipulation and scarcity and wanting to take something from someone else, then if you check yourself, you know that there's things that are coming up that would probably benefit you to work on so that you can get to the other side of it. Because whenever you try to take power from someone else, there's something that diminishes your soul essence. And you can feel it if you really check. And if you don't, then there's groups and things like that. But if things aren't flowing in your life for some reason, then that's a good barometer of what's going on. But once you get to that foundation where love is really the lead, you're past manipulation, you're past the egoic sense of wanting to create. Not that it doesn't come up, but it's not the lead. And when you get to that foundation, your intention and your intentionality about what you do and how you interact with people starts to lead. And so from that foundation, there really aren't any wrong choices. Your anger comes up for a reason. And so you understand that anger from a different perspective. And you can even ask, what are you trying to teach me? Why is this coming up? Good boundary setting, letting go of old things, insisting on relationships that are really authentic instead of the lower ones. And so they're all just these energetic adjustments that are taking place on the super conscious level that are coming up to make them conscious so that we can integrate them as part of our strength and re-embrace the masculinity within us that we're so desperately looking for ourselves. We're so desperately looking for that masculine energy in other men. Also, the authenticity that comes out of collaboration instead of taking and raping and pillaging. And we get to step into the energy of what our women in our life are really asking for. They're not asking for repressed men or feminine men. And maybe they are. Maybe some of them are, depending on what they're doing. But that's not what we hear as men. We hear from women, we want a man who's manly. We want a man who's strong. But we want a man who listens. And we want a man who understands. But we don't want them to be too effeminate. And, oh, my God, there's only effeminate men in the spiritual community. And I say bullshit to that. Bullshit to that. You're looking in the wrong places. You're looking in places that make you feel comfortable. You're looking at places where it's safe for these men to show up because they're trying to be something for you so that you'll accept them. But if you really open up and see deeper into who they really are, there's this masculinity that is just dying to wake up. And so we get to hold space for that and allow it and not judge when anger comes in, not judge when a man gets sexually aroused around another woman and attracted to it. It's so normal and so necessary. And it's really in essence of who we really are. And that's what's creating the shift and this merging between the divine masculine and the divine feminine. You won't have one without the other. If you try to suppress the masculine and all of our natural tendencies, then we're still going to have a world that's lopsided. We're still going to have a world of strife and confusion.
Absolutely, John. Yeah, very, very, very well articulated everything. And I really appreciate everything you said because so much of it's, all part of what I've been talking about and putting this summit together too. It's like, yeah, totally. Yeah. It's a dance or whatever between the divine masculine and the feminine. And it's all kind of one anyway and all that sort of thing. But we have to claim, we can't, I think, a lot of the spiritual teaching that I'm even drawn to too, really talks about kind of letting go of everything, and there's a real freedom of that. And then what's left is what's true. And what's true is there's still that dance that's going on, Oh. So a lot of times what I find is people think they're just, I'm in the void of being and I'm in the nothingness, we could be of that sort of conversation. But really, as men, what we'd be doing often is we're really, sometimes what we're doing is we're shutting parts down. We're like, oh yeah, I'm in the void and nothing. And there's all these like natural passions and desires coming up that we're not owning, So I know that's happened for me too. And so it's like, this is what's there, and not to judge it because we judge it so much with this idea of enlightenment. Like, well, you're not supposed to be like this or that, and all these concepts. That throw all the concepts out, show up to the moment, the way you're being asked to show up. The masculine, the feminine, whatever it is, the whole thing, the whole enchilada, and have a good time. One of the things I woke up to was just that I had so much masculine energy that I had suppressed. John, I know that, perhaps, other men I've had on the summit have agreed, like, yeah, I had that experience too, and like we've suppressed so much of it because we were supposed to be the nice guys, you know, like, okay, you know, we're not gonna be like some of those guys, you know, from the 70s when we grew up or whatever time, like these macho guys and they're controlling or whatever it is. But like, you know, a lot of them have good intentions, but it's like, okay, I'm going to break that mold. I'm the new guy, you know, but then we shut down this masculine energy. And I really love that you really talked about that. And, you know, on my only, you know, so I would wonder, like, before we go into Q&A, if you have just to take a moment or two, because I want to get to the Q&A soon, but if there's any, you know, further reflection you have on that about helping us guys to really trust that centered masculinity, you know, not the one that's like, well, else I'm going to dominate again. No, it's not that. It's not you know, it's just trusting what a natural pulse of our masculinity that's just already in motion. It's already there.
Yeah, and if the taking over and that aggression comes up, it's all right, cool. But you know, when you come from that, ask, hold on a second, why are you coming up? What is it that you're trying to get that you haven't gotten? What is it that you want that you're not getting? And acknowledge. And if we can be self-reflective in that, just a self-reflection, just as an aggressive tendency comes up, as a masculine tendency that may have been looked as inappropriate comes up, it's like, I wonder why this is coming up. And if we just ask ourselves that question, if we do something that doesn't feel good to us afterwards, if we react and then like step back, if I was an asshole to my girlfriend, it's like, oh God, why did I do that? It's like, oh, and we can apologize and do all that. But until we really know why, it's one thing to be the asshole and apologize, not really knowing why we're apologizing. That's not a real apology, because you really have to look at the source, because there's not a change that happened in relationship based on the impulse. But if we can acknowledge that the other person is showing up for us in their agreement to be with us, or their soul agreement to be with us, then what a gift that my girlfriend happened to be for me at that moment, that she showed up for me knowing in advance that was going to happen as a soul, and she was there for it, and I could react the way that I did. I can self-reflect, and I can go over, it's like, this is what came up, and this is why, and I'm sorry I reacted. I probably could have come this way, or just explain. It's just an opportunity for growth. So again, even if we don't judge those tendencies that would be deemed as inappropriate, we even give ourselves that break. And I think we need to, actually. Then it can be a learning experience. And just ask why. I wonder why this came up. Huh, that didn't feel good. I wonder why I reacted that way. And you don't have to know it right away, but if you just ask, just the question is going to prompt the transformation of the energy, because the energy isn't bad, it's just misunderstood. Yeah. And it's asking for the intimacy with you because it's trying to lead you back to your, and I want to get away from the labels, but it's, you know, for comprehension's sake, it's trying to lead us back to our divinity, to our divine masculine and our divine feminine nature, as it all integrates and dances together.
Yeah, absolutely. Totally. It's all pointing to that. Absolutely. So I wanted to go ahead and see if there's questions that people have. Like, are there specific, like the thought that comes to my mind is possible questions for people to reflect upon, maybe to ask, is like, if there's particular challenges you're having that speak to you, that are popping up for you just naturally from what we're talking about, we'd love to hear from you. I do see someone's hand is up. It looks like we've got Chris. Good to see you. I'm going to go and bring him on.
Hey, Chris.
Here we go. Hi, Chris.
Hello, Dan. Hello, John.
Hey, how are you? Good to see you. Oh, this is so cool. Yeah.
This is great. I love Zoom. Yeah, once again, Dan, kudos for bringing these enlightened people together and allowing us to collaborate. This is just awesome. So this is great. I mean, this is the messages that you're talking today, John, you're bringing to light, and you're really resonating with it all. And as men, we're out there, you know, fighting a good fight and everything. I want to talk about, you know, the application of it in call it the real world. This is great. Surrender, the flow, getting out of your own way. So here we are as men, we hang up the phone today and we go back into our days. We do our best to do our best, and we're out there in a capitalistic society that's oftentimes greed driven. And some of the time we lose our way and we fall back into this place of forgetting our light, because, whatever it be, competition, just striving, ambition, things that, so why don't maybe you can give us some tips on, as we get into the tactics of the day and all of a sudden we get swept away and we forget everything you're talking about. What are some of the ways that during the day we can reground and recenter and remember everything, all this wonderful stuff you're talking about over the past half hour?
Great question. Thank you for that. The first thing I would do, and this was actually taught to me by a kahuna in Hawaii not too long ago, and it was such a beautiful reminder. It's so perfect. When you wake up every morning, really make it a ritual. Wake up every morning, and the second your feet touch the ground, bless her. Bless the earth. Bless her in gratitude for what it's providing to us, but also bless Gaia with the gift of you, because you are a gift back to Gaia. And we forget that. We forget the gifts that we are. We're divine and we're here in co-creation with others, and that's not a mistake. And we forget our divinity. We forget the power that we have to influence. We forget the power of our consciousness over others to affect them one way or the other, because all our relationships are an alchemical process. And it's how we shine our alchemy onto other people that causes them to react and bubble something within them, and then it ripples out into the world. And so that's one thing. Start with that ritual every morning, the back and the forth, and that's going to set your day. And as you do that on a daily basis, you'll remember. You'll keep remembering over and over. Also, when we go out into the real world, we have to remember that we have the opportunity to lead instead of to falling into other patterns. So as you go into business meetings or interact with others, sometimes we fall into other people's agendas energetically. And that's just part of the old dance in the way that we did relationships. That's the way we've been taught. If you're doing business, you go into the meeting and you apply for the position based on their needs. And so I'm going to adjust to what this organization needs based on what they've put out there. And we're shifting in our co-creation, in our collaboration with others now. And so now when you go into an interaction, it's like you lead with you. You lead with your authenticity and your intentionality. And then if there's a vibrational match, it's going to collide and it's going to blossom together. If it's not a vibrational match with who you really are, then why would you want to adjust and fit into something that's going to diminish the essence of who you are, the gift that you're bringing to the table, so that you can fit somebody else's agenda that's not really in line with your soul, but we're trying to, because we're trying to make money. We're trying to collaborate in consumerism and building things that aren't true for our soul. So lead with your energy. Be aware as you go into interaction. You can start feeling the dance in conversations. And you can feel when you're kind of dipping into somebody else's energy and staying there based on an agenda. And then you can also feel when, again, there's that dance going where you're each just being authentic and sharing with one another. And you find that those co-creative spaces and situations are the ones that really make you feel alive. And so as you keep doing that, opportunities for that will continue to show up. I promise you. I know I've walked this over and over and over again. And now it's very difficult for me to go into situations where I have to try to fit somebody else's box. And there's not really a lot of room for mine, except mine sharing my energy to build something that doesn't seem like it's quite right for me. So going back to corporate in other senses would be like a diminishing of my soul if it weren't aligned. So if I were to go back into doing commercial real estate, which is what I used to do, or insurance and any of that, based on the agendas that the insurance companies have and what I felt and all that, it diminishes my light so much. And I can feel it. And so we need to honor that within ourselves. And so trust what you're feeling, and trust that opportunities will show up for you. Even though they don't appear to be on the table, they will. But sometimes we just have to get through those things that don't serve, so that the floodgates of what does open up. Does that answer your question?
Yes, wise, very wise. Thank you, John. Appreciate the insight.
Yeah, great question. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Chris. Thank you so much. All right, great. We're loving hearing from Chris, and I'd love to hear from others if they'd like to go ahead and ask question. I'm going to go ahead and just shift that. Okay, so I'm not seeing anything coming in yet. I'm grateful for all the people that are here, though, and for everything you've been sharing, John. Do you have, as we start to wrap up, do you have any last thoughts or things you'd like to share with everybody around what we've been talking about?
Yeah, with men, it's really interesting. I was looking at you, Dan, and I started thinking about fatherhood. And I really started thinking about, I just got the feeling. Are you a dad?
Yes.
How old are your kids?
Well, I have two of my biological kids. They're 12 and 9, and then I have a stepdaughter that's 25.
Oh wow, okay.
Mm-hmm.
So for your kids, they're still growing up. There's not anything that you wouldn't do for them.
Right.
Not anything. Like you would move heaven on earth, all types of mountains to give them the opportunities that you didn't have and really strive.
Correct.
And if somebody were going to hurt your children, you would do anything.
More than anything, yeah. More than anything, right?
Yeah. And so as a man, we have to acknowledge that within us. And so if someone's going to hurt our children, these primary instincts that we have as men to show up and to protect and all that, there's a grace in that. There's a grace in standing up for love. There's a grace in being contradictory to something that is demolishing of somebody else's soul essence and energy. So to embrace that fiery passion, that godliness within us in those situations is something that we don't have to diminish. And don't let anybody make you wrong for that. Really trust what's coming up within you. But also as a father, really look at it. There's this tremendous love that comes for these children. And that's a divine feminine aspect, if you will. But you embrace that. It's like when you think of your kids, like, yeah, I love them. Oh my God, and I do anything for them. And it's this nurturing component that comes in. And so anywhere where it doesn't feel safe to be in feminine energy, guys, stop judging. Know that we're doing it automatically anyway. Anytime that we're caring for someone else, anytime that, God forbid, we watch a movie and we tear up a little bit when no one else is watching, right? That's all of us coming up and out. And the invitation is really to embrace more of that within you. You don't have to repress it. You have to be out in the open and overly exaggerate with it, but allow yourself just to be authentic with it and let other people see that vulnerability also. Express it to those who are around you. Feel safe in it. Because the only place that you're not safe in it is within yourself. And that's a story that's keeping you in suffering. And it's damn time we stop suffering through this stuff, because it's an illusion. It was created through generations before us. And we have to let it go, not only for ourselves, but for our future generations as well. As we break that cycle, our children do not have to suffer. Our father's suffering. We get to break it now. So embrace all that. Be all that comes up for you. And be the example, not only for your children, but for yourself, for your own inner child who's just waiting for you to say, God, I'm going to be this because I know that's who I am. And then that all this other, these superpowers as the masculine that you are will awaken in a whole new way that there's no way that you'll be able to misuse. Because you're coming from this heart center, you're coming from your soul essence, and from there, I'm telling you, there's only light that shines, there's only divinity, there's only good intentions, and in essence, it's who you are. So embrace all of it.
Wow. Yeah, I really love that you brought up the fatherhood, because that's such a perfect example of such deep divine love, and the power of the masculinity that naturally pulses together with it. It's like, no, like if it was a sense of like someone trying to invade this home or something, it's like no one's getting in. No, not, everything's protected no matter what, and like you said, I would do anything sort of thing, all that, like, yeah, kick down any door, whatever I would need to do in service of that love, totally. And so it's a great pointer of that, and that can exist in what occurs to me within that is just a really cool reflection right now for me and for everyone, perhaps, is that sort of love shows up in other ways in our life. And as we're more and more conscious and keep cultivating that, we can have that awesome stuff, in so many other areas of our life. It'll be a different hue and color of a bit, but it's similar. It's the same sort of thing. You so love the people in your life. You're there, you're standing with them, you do anything for them, sort of thing. And I just really appreciate you sharing it in that way. So thank you.
It's freedom. It's the freedom we all look for, but we keep ourselves trapped into something else, and it's just, you can breathe in it. And it's like there's this sense of just relief as you relax into it and fall into the feather bed that it's providing for you if you only just let go.
Oh, wonderful. Wonderful. So thank you so much. And then I just want to give you an opportunity, if there's if people wanted to get in touch with you or learn more about you, what would be the best way for people to do that?
Okay, so I host the Beyond the Ordinary show, which is an online series of transformational work. And we host channels and psychics, and we just bring these conversations to the table over and over with tips and techniques and tools and awarenesses and community. And it's a great space. It's super fun. It's an audio series right now, so it's a little bit different than what you're doing. But we just keep the conversation going because, again, we get to keep expanding and remembering. And so if anyone wants to find out more there and join me for conversations with luminaries from all around the world, just go to beyondtheordinaryshow.com and sign up, and you'll get these webinars for free.
Outstanding. So we'll make sure we provide that for everybody. And I just want to, again, just really acknowledge you for, let me just put that in there into the box, and then let me see if I can, I don't think I sent that to the right box though. Let me do it like this. Okay, here we go. There it goes. Okay. All right. So I just wanted, there it is. Everybody can click through if you want to check it out. I haven't had a lot of experience with this show, but the bits that I've heard about and the parts I have heard is really incredible stuff going on there. So I'd love to attend more and check it out more myself. So I've been meaning to do that. So I appreciate you so much, John. Thank you for sharing your soul essence and your truth and your wisdom that you're here to bring here in this platform. I'm so glad that this called to you, that you answered that calling. So I deeply honor it and love that and love you. So thank you so much for being here today.
Oh, thank you. Thank you for putting this together. What a great seminar. And it's so, we're ready. We're ready to hear these things. So it's great to collaborate. And thank you everyone for listening. Chris, thank you for your call. And let's keep playing and expanding, right?
Absolutely. You keep playing. That's what they keep getting with you. It's like, it's a playground. Let's play. Let's have fun. I love that. I'm all with that. So, and then I just want to thank all of our attendees that are here, and keep on joining in on us. You're invited. At 1 p.m. Central, we have Martin Hannon's going to be coming on, and I was looking at, what we're going to be talking about with him, and wow, you definitely want to be showing up for that if at all possible. The title of the talk is Successful Relationships, and listen to me, he's going to really be talking to deepen this conversation around what's going on for men and their feelings, and how, why we protect them, and deepen that conversation. So really looking forward to having you then. And I'll just let you go for now and enjoy the next few hours before we start up again or doing whatever you're going to do. And so much love to you all, and to see you real soon. Okay, goodbye for now.
Bye.
Bye, Jen.